The obsession took root when I was 13, in the dim stacks of the school library, where I found a tattered magazine article about a Vermont family who uncovered a secret chamber during a basement renovation. Behind a crumbling wall, they discovered relics from the 1800s. A rusted lantern, letters brittle as autumn leaves, a porcelain doll with one eye fractured like a spiderweb. The image of that doll, staring blankly from the page, lodged in my mind, a symbol of history lying dormant, inches from everyday life. I, John Carver, felt a spark ignite, a hunger to uncover the unseen, to peel back the mundane and find the extraordinary. For 3 years, I collected stories of hidden spaces, each one fueling my fixation. Prohibition-era speakeasies concealed behind revolving bookcases in Chicago jazz clubs, forgotten fallout shelters beneath manicured suburban lawns, priest holes in English manors where Catholic fugitives hid, their breath held against the scrape of boots above. These tales convinced me that the world was a palimpsest, its surface scratched with secrets waiting to be revealed. Our house, a 1930s colonial in a quiet Massachusetts suburb, became the canvas for my obsession. Built in 1941, it had endured multiple renovations, its wooden bones creaking with the weight of decades, its plaster walls scarred by time. The floor plan was a riddle that refused to solve itself. I spent countless evenings with a tape measure, sketching diagrams on graph paper, calculating volumes that clashed with the house's exterior dimensions. The second floor was the crux of the mystery, particularly the space between my sister Lisa's bedroom and the hallway bathroom. My measurements revealed a 3-foot discrepancy, a void unaccounted for by any logical explanation. I presented my findings at dinner 2 years ago, my voice trembling with conviction. "There's space missing," I said, spreading my sketches across the table. "It doesn't add up." My mother, her fork paused midair, offered a patient smile. "Not every house is perfectly square, John. It's probably just extra insulation or ductwork." My father, a structural engineer with a penchant for precision, nodded, his glasses glinting in the lamplight. "Old houses have quirks. Doesn't mean there's a secret passageway hiding treasure." Their dismissal stung, but I saw the flaw in their logic. Ductwork didn't explain a void this size. Insulation didn't account for the hollow echo I heard when I tapped the wall. Lisa, 16 and perpetually exasperated, was less diplomatic. After I spent a Saturday tapping her bedroom wall, searching for hollow spots, she tossed her soccer ball between her hands and scoffed. "You need actual hobbies, John. Video games, dating, normal 16-year-old stuff." Her words bounced off me, my ear pressed to the drywall, listening for the telltale shift from solid to empty. The wall was a taunt, a locked door in my own home, and I was determined to pick its lock. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining what lay beyond, dusty relics, forgotten diaries, or something stranger, something that didn't belong in the light. When my parents announced a weekend conference in Chicago, leaving Friday morning, the opportunity was a gift wrapped in silence. Their instructions were routine: finish homework, call emergency contacts if needed, and with a pointed look from Mom, absolutely no parties. They said nothing about cutting into walls, an omission I took as permission. Lisa left for soccer practice that afternoon, her cleats clacking on the hardwood as she shouted, "Order pizza. I'm starving when I get back." The house was mine, its quiet a canvas for my obsession. I retrieved Dad's toolbox from the garage, the metal clinking as I bypassed the reciprocating saw. Too loud, too reckless. For a utility knife, a pry bar, and a small handsaw. These were tools for precision, for uncovering without destroying. In Lisa's room, I stood before the suspicious wall, its cream paint smooth under my fingers, cool as if it held the night's chill. I'd mapped the stud pattern weeks ago, marking a section between studs with faint pencil dots, barely visible unless you knew to look. This was my entry point, the threshold to the unknown. I took a deep breath, the utility knife steady in my grip, and pressed the blade into the drywall. It sliced through with a whisper, paint and plaster parting like a wound. Dust drifted onto Lisa's bed, coating her blue comforter in a fine white veil. I cut a careful square, sweat beading on my forehead as I worked, the handsaw biting through wooden lath with a rhythmic rasp. The wood was tougher than expected, each piece splintering with reluctance, as if the house resisted my intrusion. Hours passed, my arms aching, my t-shirt damp with sweat, but each fragment removed brought me closer to the truth. Daylight faded, the room dimming to a gray haze, when I heard Lisa's key in the front door. Her footsteps thudded up the stairs, her voice carrying, "John, did you order pizza yet?" She stopped in the doorway, her sports bag hitting the floor with a thud. "What the hell are you doing?" Her eyes widened, taking in the wreckage. Me kneeling amid drywall scraps, a ragged hole in her wall, dust blanketing her dresser and carpet. "Mom and Dad are going to kill you." I held up my hands, the handsaw still clutched in one. "I know how this looks. It looks like you destroyed my wall. I can fix it before they get back." But listen, I was right. I pointed to the gap I'd created, a dark void beyond the lath, too vast for a mere wall cavity. "There's something back there." Lisa crossed her arms, her anger warring with skepticism. "Probably just mice and insulation. Great job, genius." She knelt beside me, her curiosity betraying her, and peered into the hole. I grabbed my flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness like a blade. "See for yourself." She leaned closer, her breath catching. "Wait, that's not just a wall cavity." The beam revealed an emptiness that stretched beyond reason, a space that defied the house's geometry. I nodded, a surge of triumph warming my chest. "It's a passageway, a lot of space." The hole was small, but it was proof, a hidden world behind the ordinary, just as I'd always believed. I resumed cutting, fueled by vindication, sawing through lath with renewed energy. Lisa's anger softened into reluctant interest. "They'll ground you until college," she muttered. But she began clearing debris, stacking drywall scraps in a corner. Musty air poured from the growing opening, carrying the scent of old paper, dust, and something faintly sweet, like flowers left too long in a vase. "It smells like Grandma's attic," Lisa said, wrinkling her nose, her voice softer now, tinged with unease. By evening, the hole was large enough to squeeze through, a jagged portal into darkness. We sat on the edge of Lisa's bed, staring at it, my flashlight revealing wooden planks covered in a thick layer of undisturbed dust, the first marks of our presence in a place untouched by time. "I can't believe you were actually right," Lisa said quietly, her soccer jersey still damp from practice. 3 years of research," I replied, pride swelling despite the ache in my arms. "Dad said I was wasting my time. So what now? We're not actually going in there, are we?" "Of course we are. This is the discovery of a lifetime. What if it's dangerous? That space has been sealed for who knows how long. Maybe for a reason." Her voice was low, her eyes fixed on the hole, her usual confidence fraying at the edges. I gathered supplies, phone, flashlight, water bottle, a small digital camera for documentation. If it was dangerous, we'd know. This house has stood for nearly a century. My words were more confident than I felt, a shield against the unease creeping into my gut. Lisa frowned, her fingers tightening around her pepper spray canister, its silver glint a small rebellion against the unknown. "Fine, but I'm bringing this. And don't laugh. It makes me feel better." I approached the opening, excitement buzzing through me like a current. This was my moment, the culmination of years of speculation, of being dismissed as a dreamer. I clicked on the flashlight, its beam a lifeline, and ducked through the hole, the temperature dropping 10 degrees as I crossed the threshold. The air was thick with dust, the silence absolute. No creaks of settling wood, no hum of distant traffic, just a stillness that pressed against my eardrums like a physical weight. Lisa squeezed through behind me, her breath visible in the cold, a white cloud that lingered too long. "It's freezing," she whispered, her voice flat in the enclosed space. "Old spaces are like that," I said, though the cold was sharper than I'd expected. A bite that sank into my bones and stayed there. The passageway stretched left and right, its walls bare wooden planks draped with cobwebs that hung like tattered curtains. undisturbed for decades. Our footprints marred the dust, sharp and solitary, the first marks in a place that felt like it had been waiting. "Which way?" Lisa asked, staying close, her pepper spray held like a talisman. "Right?" I decided, my flashlight beam leading the way. "Let's see where it goes." The passageway was a tunnel through time, its wooden walls unmarred by paint or wear, as if frozen at the moment of construction. The planks were seamless, no nails or joints visible, their surface smooth yet somehow wrong, as if they hummed with a faint, subsonic resonance that tickled the edges of my perception. The dust was a thick carpet, swallowing our footsteps, and the air grew colder with each step, the sweet, decayed scent intensifying until it coated my throat. Lisa's pepper spray glinted in her hand, her eyes darting to every shadow, her breath a series of quick, white puffs. "This goes farther than I expected," I whispered, my voice sounding flat, absorbed by the walls. "I don't like this," Lisa said, her voice low, as if afraid to disturb the silence. "It feels like we're not supposed to be here." Her words echoed my own unease, a growing sense that we were intruders in a place that resented our presence. I ignored her, my curiosity a tether pulling me forward, though a small voice in my mind whispered caution. The passage curved slightly, the walls narrowing until my shoulders brushed against them, the wood cool and unyielding. Then, abruptly, it opened to a steep wooden staircase ascending into darkness. "Look," I said, aiming my flashlight upward, the beam swallowed by the void above. "A staircase. Going where?" Lisa's voice was tense, her flashlight sweeping the steps. "We should be under the roof by now. Only one way to find out." The stairs creaked under my weight, each step groaning as if protesting our intrusion, the wood bowing slightly under my sneakers. Lisa followed, testing each board before committing, her knuckles white around her flashlight. The air grew colder, the sweet scent now laced with something metallic, like old coins or blood. At the top, the space widened into a hidden attic, far larger than the passageway suggested, its dimensions defying the house's geometry. The ceiling was low, slanted, draped with cobwebs that swayed in an unfelt breeze, their strands glinting like silver threads in the flashlight's beam. Dust-covered trunks and boxes lined the walls, their surfaces untouched by time, their shapes looming like silent sentinels. The air was musty, colder than the passage, with that same sweet metallic scent now so thick it felt like a presence in the room. "This is impossible," Lisa muttered, her breath a white cloud that lingered too long. "The house plans don't show anything like this." "It was sealed off during a renovation," I said, moving to a large trunk, its brass latches tarnished but intact. An entire section of the house, hidden away for decades. I brushed dust from the latches, the metal cold against my fingers, and lifted the lid with a creak that echoed in the silence. Inside were stacks of yellowed papers and black and white photographs, their edges curled like dried leaves. I lifted a photo, a family standing before our house, dressed in 1940s clothing, their smiles stiff and unnatural, their eyes seeming to follow me as I tilted the image. "Previous owners," I guessed, handing it to Lisa. She shivered, her soccer jersey no match for the cold. "Who seals this up and forgets it? Why hide all this?" Her voice was soft, her eyes scanning the attic, as if expecting something to move in the shadows. I sifted through the documents, building permits, renovation plans from 1943 and 1944, their ink faded but legible. "They did major work on the second floor," I said, my flashlight illuminating the brittle pages. "Structural changes that don't match the house we know. That's when this got closed off." The papers detailed beams and walls that didn't exist in our floor plan, a blueprint for a house that was both ours and not. Lisa wrapped her arms around herself, her breath visible in the dim light. "It's freezing in here. Can we go back? We've solved your mystery." "Not yet." My flashlight swept the attic, its beam landing on a solid wooden door at the far end, its brass keyhole gleaming as if polished daily, a stark contrast to the dust-choked relics around it. "What's a door doing here? It doesn't fit the layout of the house." Lisa joined me reluctantly, her pepper spray clutched tightly. It's probably just storage. Let's not push our luck. I tried the handle, locked, the metal cold enough to sting. Lisa produced a pencil, her hands trembling as she wiggled it in the keyhole until a metallic clatter echoed inside. I knocked the key out, she said, peering through the hole. I manipulated the lock with my fingers, feeling for movement, my heart pounding with anticipation. After a minute, a solid click rewarded my efforts, the sound sharp in the silence. We exchanged glances, hesitation flickering between us, the air heavy with the weight of what lay beyond. Open it, Lisa said finally, her voice barely audible, her curiosity overcoming her fear. I turned the handle, expecting another dusty closet or crawl space. Instead, the door opened to a perfect replica of our downstairs hallway. Cream-colored walls, polished hardwood floor, family photos in identical frames. The dent from my bike crash at 10 etched into the plaster. Light fixtures glowed with a soft, sourceless light, impossible without electricity, casting no shadows. The air was thicker, the sweet metallic scent now cloying, like embalming fluid mixed with rotting fruit. What the hell? Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. This isn't possible, I said, stepping forward, my sneakers creaking on the hardwood, the sound identical to our real hallway. The floor was solid, real, yet the space felt wrong, as if the house were holding its breath. Lisa grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. John, we need to go back. This isn't right. But curiosity was a chain, pulling me deeper. It's a copy of our house, Lisa. An exact replica. I need to know how it exists. The replica hallway was a mockery of our home. Every detail precise yet disturbingly wrong. The cream walls were too smooth, lacking the faint cracks and scuffs of our real house. The hardwood was too polished, reflecting the sourceless light with an unnatural sheen. The family photos were perfect replicas, but their subjects were altered. In our real house, the photos captured us smiling at the camera. Beach trips with sand-dusted toes, Christmas mornings with wrapping paper strewn about, my graduation with a crooked cap. Here, every face was turned slightly away. Mom's profile sharp against the backdrop of a Cape Cod sunset, Dad gazing over his shoulder at a half-decorated tree, Lisa looking off-frame at her soccer trophy, my own eyes fixed on something unseen in the distance. The pictures, I whispered, my voice flat in the heavy air. They're different, Lisa gasped, her flashlight trembling. They weren't like that when we came in, were they? Her question hung between us, a confirmation of the unease twisting in my gut. No, everyone was facing forward when we entered. The change was subtle but undeniable, as if the house were watching us, adjusting itself to our presence, rewriting its own narrative. The air grew heavier, pressing against my chest, the sweet metallic scent now laced with a chemical edge, like formaldehyde or something worse. I moved toward Lisa's bedroom, the door ajar as it often was at home, its familiarity a cruel lure. Inside, the replica was flawless. Soccer trophies aligned on the shelf in their precise arrangement. Blue comforter rumpled as she'd left it that morning, yesterday's jeans and t-shirt draped over the chair. But the wall where I'd cut my hole was intact, smooth, its cream paint unmarred, as if my hours of labor had been erased from existence. The wall's hole, I said, running my hand over it, the surface cold and unyielding. No hole. Lisa stayed in the doorway, her pepper spray trembling in her hand, her eyes wide with fear. This is seriously freaking me out, John. It's like the house is pretending nothing happened. I checked my phone, 3:17 p.m., then glanced at Lisa's bedside clock, its digital display frozen at 11:43. Look at the clock, I said, pointing. We watched it for 30 seconds, the numbers unchanging, the colon unblinking. Maybe the battery died, Lisa suggested, her voice thin. I opened the battery compartment. 2 AA batteries, seemingly normal, their metal warm to the touch. I checked other clocks. My room, our parents', all stuck at 11:43, their displays glowing with an unnatural intensity, as if mocking the passage of time. My replica room was equally unnerving, a a perfect mirror of my own space. Every book on my shelf was in its exact place. Every poster aligned with the same slight tilt. Even the dirty socks I'd left on the floor that morning were replicated, their folds identical. A thin layer of dust coated everything, suggesting years of abandonment. Yet the objects looked brand new, their colors too vibrant, their edges too sharp. I flipped the light switch, nothing, the sourceless ambient light persisting, emanating from nowhere and everywhere. In our parents' room, the bed was made with hospital corners, the pillows arranged with a precision our real parents never bothered with. Dad's reading glasses sat on the nightstand beside a book with a blank cover. Its pages yellowed but unreadable, the text smudged into illegible swirls. Mom's jewelry box was open, her necklaces hung with unnatural symmetry, each chain gleaming as if polished moments ago. A black rotary telephone, antique but pristine, stood on Mom's nightstand, an object absent from our real home, its presence a violation of our reality. "We don't have landlines," Lisa said, her voice tight, her eyes fixed on the phone as if it might move. I lifted the receiver, expecting silence, my hand trembling as I held it to my ear. Instead, soft, rhythmic breathing filled the line. In, out, steady and deliberate, like a sleeper unaware of their own sound. A jolt of fear shot through me, and I dropped the receiver, the heavy plastic clattering to the floor. The breathing continued, audible in the room, a presence that seemed to emanate from the phone itself. In, out, relentless. "There's someone on the line?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. Lisa grabbed my arm, her nails biting into my skin. "We need to go now." Her fear was a mirror to my own, a recognition that we'd crossed a line into something that didn't belong in our world. The family photos had changed again, every face now fully turned away, as if shunning us, their expressions obscured by shadow. The hallway felt longer, its walls closer, the shadows deeper, pooling in corners like ink. "The door," Lisa said, her voice trembling, her flashlight beam shaking. "We need to find the door we came through." We retraced our steps, the attic door still open, the passageway visible, a lifeline to our world. But the air grew colder, the light dimming, whispers drifting from the walls, unintelligible yet human, a chorus of voices just beyond comprehension, speaking in a language that felt like it was trying to remember us. We squeezed through the hole into Lisa's real bedroom, the warmth and sunlight a jarring contrast, the normal sounds of the house. Creaking floors, distant traffic, a bomb against the silence we'd left behind. I collapsed on her bed, a small glass jar of white powder from the replica kitchen in my pocket, its contents shimmering unnaturally in the sunlight, like crushed pearls or bone dust. "What is this place we found?" Lisa whispered, standing by the window, putting distance between herself and the hole. "Something we shouldn't have disturbed," I said, the warning I'd seen later in the replica basement echoing in my mind. "Don't stay after dark." The words hadn't surfaced yet, but the unease they would carry was already there, a shadow cast by the house's secrets. The afternoon waned, my phone reading 5:30 p.m., the sky outside Lisa's window bruising with the promise of sunset. She eyed the hole warily, her arms crossed tightly. "We're not going back in there, John. Especially not at night. That place, it's wrong." I bolted upright, a realization hitting me like a slap. My camera, I left it in the kitchen. The digital camera held photos of the symbols on the replica house's front door, the basement's warnings, the white powder, our only tangible proof of what we'd seen. Without it, our story was just a fever dream easily dismissed. "Leave it," Lisa said, her voice sharp. "We have your phone pics. That's enough." The phone's blurry. The camera has everything, clear shots of the symbols, the basement, the powder. We need it. I stood, grabbing my flashlight, the weight of the decision settling in my chest. 5 minutes, in and out, before dark. Lisa shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. "No way. You saw how that place felt. It's not just a copy. It's alive." But I was already moving, the hole in the wall a dark mouth beckoning me back. She followed reluctantly, her pepper spray clutched like a lifeline, her breath quick and shallow. The passageway was colder than before, the darkness thicker, our flashlight beams weaker, as if the house were swallowing the light. The wooden planks seemed to pulse underfoot, a faint vibration that made my teeth ache. The sweet metallic scent was now rancid, like rotting meat left in the sun. The replica house had changed. The sourceless light had dimmed to a sickly glow, casting long, jagged shadows that moved when they shouldn't. The family photos were blank, their frames empty, the glass reflecting our faces back at us, distorted and pale. The hallway felt narrower, the walls closer, as if the house were constricting around us. In the kitchen, my camera sat on the counter, its lens glinting like an eye. I grabbed it, turning to leave, when Lisa froze, her gaze locked on the window beyond the sink. "John," she shrieked, pointing with a trembling finger. "There's someone out there." Beyond the glass, the white fog that had replaced our backyard pulsed like a living organism, its surface rippling with slow, deliberate waves. I saw nothing but the fog, its whiteness absolute, but Lisa's terror was visceral, her face drained of color. "Tall, just standing there watching us," she insisted, her voice rising to a near hysterical pitch. "He was right there in the fog, staring." Before I could respond, a loud crack split the air, followed by another, then another. Every cabinet door in the kitchen flew open simultaneously, slamming against their frames with a force that shook the room. White powder, identical to the jar in my pocket, poured from the cabinets, spilling onto the floor in impossible quantities, a flood of shimmering dust that defied the space it came from. Lisa screamed, backing toward the door, her pepper spray raised uselessly. The powder began to move, swirling across the linoleum, forming distinct patterns, footprints, long and narrow, with too many toes, tracking directly toward us. "Run!" I shouted, my paralysis breaking, the camera clutched to my chest. Lisa bolted, and I followed, the house erupting in chaos. Doors slammed open and closed throughout the replica, a cacophony of wooden crashes that seemed to chase us. Whispers rose to screams, a chorus of voices speaking in a language that clawed at my mind, words I couldn't grasp but felt in my bones. The temperature plummeted, my breath clouding in thick white clouds, my fingers numbing in seconds. We reached Lisa's replica bedroom, but the hole in the wall led to a void, a black abyss deeper than any natural shadow, its edges pulsing like a heartbeat. "That's not our way out," Lisa cried, her voice breaking. We turned and ran for the attic, the hallway stretching unnaturally, each step covering less distance than it should, as if the house were pulling us back. The whispers became a roar, the voices now inside the walls, under the floor, in the air itself, speaking our names in a distorted mimicry. The attic stairs loomed ahead, and we climbed frantically, the wood groaning under our weight. The door to our world was still there, but its frame was contracting, the opening narrowing like a closing mouth, the wood creaking with a sound like laughter. Lisa squeezed through first, her flashlight clattering to the floor as she scrambled. I followed, the edges of the frame scraping my shoulders, the wood unnaturally warm, almost alive. I tumbled into the passageway, turning back just in time to see the door seal itself completely, the seam vanishing as if it had never existed. We ran through the passage, the walls seeming to pulse, the dust rising in clouds that stung our eyes. We scrambled through the hole into Lisa's real bedroom, collapsing onto the carpet, panting, the warmth and sunlight a stark contrast to the cold, dark world we'd escaped. We dragged Lisa's desk and bookshelf across the room, barricading the hole with every piece of furniture we could move, our hands shaking, our breaths ragged. "What just happened in there?" Lisa whispered, sinking onto her stripped bed, staring at the wall of furniture. "I don't know," I said, the jar of white powder still in my pocket, its weight a reminder of what we brought back. "But that house, or whatever it is, it's alive, and it doesn't want us to leave." The camera, still clutched in my hand, felt heavier, its photos a Pandora's box I wasn't sure I wanted to open. That night, I woke to a faint sound. Scrape, 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 like fingernails dragging across the other side of Lisa's wall. Slow and deliberate, a message from the dark. I lay frozen, my heart pounding, listening until exhaustion pulled me back under. By morning, a thin trail of white powder led from my doorway to my bed, the same shimmering dust from the replica house, arranged in patterns, curved lines, angular marks, symbols that seemed to writhe when I blinked. Lisa's room was worse, the powder covering her carpet in a dense layer, forming the numbers 11 verse 43 in the center, the digits sharp and precise, as if written by an unseen hand. "It's coming through," she whispered, her voice trembling, her eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night. "John, what have we done?" Our parents returned early, their SUV pulling into the driveway at 7 a.m., the headlights sweeping across the living room where Lisa and I sat, pale and hollow-eyed, every light in the house blazing. Mom stopped short, her suitcase thudding to the floor. "What are you two doing up so early? And why are all the lights on?" Dad followed, setting down his bags, his engineer's eye scanning us with a half-smile. "Movie marathon?" he guessed, oblivious to the tension coiling between us. I forced a shrug, my voice hoarse. "Something like that. Couldn't sleep." But dread gnawed at me, a certainty that Dad would find the hole. He passed Lisa's room, his footsteps halting. Then his voice boomed. "What the hell? Lisa, John, get up here now." We found him pushing aside our barricade, the hole fully exposed, its raw edges of drywall and splintered lath a wound in the room. "What did you do to the wall?" he demanded, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. Mom appeared behind us, gasping, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God! What happened?" I stepped forward, scrambling for an explanation that wouldn't sound insane. "I noticed the wall didn't match the house's dimensions," I said, sticking to the truth as closely as I dared. "The measurements were off, so I thought there might be a hidden space. I found a passage, an old service corridor or something." Dad, ever the engineer, knelt to inspect the hole, his sleeve brushing the edge. I saw it then, fine white powder clinging to his cuff, shimmering faintly, unnoticed by him. "This could be serious," he said, his tone shifting from anger to professional concern. "Hidden spaces like this can compromise the structure, water damage, mold, electrical hazards." He leaned closer, his fingers grazing the splintered wood, more powder dusting his hand. "I need to examine this properly." As he spoke, his movements grew odd, a slight delay in his gestures, his smile arriving a beat too late, like an actor forgetting his cue. "I'll handle it," he said, his voice flat, his eyes lingering on the hole with an intensity that wasn't his. That day, he repaired the wall with unnatural focus, measuring and cutting drywall with precise, mechanical movements, his tools echoing through the house past midnight. Mom brought him a sandwich, but it sat untouched on Lisa's desk, the bread curling at the edges. By morning, the wall was flawless, the hole erased, the paint blended so perfectly it was as if the passage had never existed. But Dad was changed, dark circles ringed his eyes, his pupils too large, swallowing the blue of his irises, his body swaying slightly as he admired his work. "Good as new," he announced, his tone empty, a smile flickering too late to match the words. By day 3, Mom noticed. At dinner, Dad's plate sat untouched, his fork idle, his gaze fixed on some unseen point. "Robert, you haven't eaten or slept," she said, her voice tight with worry. "You're scaring me." He blinked slowly, the motion unnaturally deliberate, his pupils black pools. "I'm fine," he said, his smile delayed, a mask that didn't fit. "Better than fine." He excused himself, returning to Lisa's room, where he'd installed a desk and chair facing the repaired wall. He sat there for hours, staring, whispering in a guttural language that wasn't English, the sounds slithering through the house like a snake. White powder appeared along baseboards, first in Lisa's room, then spreading to the hallway, the kitchen, my bedroom. It formed patterns, symbols curved and angular, that seemed to pulse in the corner of my eye. Electronics failed in Dad's presence. Lights flickered, The TV turned to static. My phone's battery drained instantly when he passed. The house grew colder, our breath visible even in the living room. The air heavy with that sweet metallic scent, now rancid, like decay. Lisa began seeing a figure at the edge of her vision. Tall, too tall, with limbs too long, wearing Dad's clothes but wrong. Its face a distorted echo of his, the features smudged, as if drawn from a fading memory. "It's always there," she whispered, huddled in the living room, her knees pulled to her chest, watching me, but when I look, it's gone. Mom reported stranger things. Objects moving when she wasn't looking, footsteps when everyone was accounted for, cabinet doors open when she returned from the store. "I know it sounds crazy," she said one night, drying a plate with mechanical precision, her eyes scanning the kitchen. "But I think someone else is in the house." Her voice cracked, her scientific mind wrestling with the impossible. I set up cameras, a webcam in the upstairs hallway, my old phone hidden on Lisa's bookshelf, capturing the repaired wall and Dad's chair. For 4 nights, I reviewed footage, each clip more disturbing than the last. The hallway camera caught doors opening and closing on their own, shadows moving when no one was there. The footage from Lisa's room was worse. Each night at 3 a.m., Dad appeared in the frame, not entering through the door but materializing, standing before the wall. He placed both hands against the drywall, his forehead touching it, and whispered for hours in that guttural language, the sounds rhythmic, hypnotic, wrong. White powder swirled around him, forming symbols that pulsed in time with his words, as if the house were answering. I showed Mom the footage, her face paling as she watched. "That's not Robert," she whispered, her scientific resolve crumbling. I shared my research from the county records office. The house was built in 1941 by Edward Chambers, a physicist who vanished in 1943 at 11:43 a.m. His papers on dimensional physics theorized parallel spaces, echoes of our reality. He'd built the house as a laboratory, its architecture aligned to create a doorway between worlds. "I think Chambers' consciousness is trapped in that replica house," I said, "and it's overriding Dad." That evening, I confronted Dad in Lisa's room, where he sat staring at the wall, his pupils black, his hands dusted with powder. "You're not yourself," I said, holding up my phone, the video playing. "You're talking to the wall at night. Something's wrong." For a moment, confusion flickered. Dad's real voice, soft and frightened, saying, "I don't remember." Then his pupils expanded, swallowing his irises, and he snapped, "The wall is perfect now, stronger." His voice was deeper, not his, a resonance that vibrated in my chest. He lunged, his grip inhuman, his fingers digging into my arm. "You opened a door that should have remained closed," he said, the voice not Dad's but something ancient, hungry. "The crossing has begun. I am becoming your father, as the girl will accommodate another, the woman another. All of you vessels." I broke free, locking myself in my room as he attacked the door, the knife blade punching through, wood splintering. The house's electronics failed, lights dying, my computer flaring with symbols identical to those in the replica. Outside, the streetlights flickered and died, plunging the neighborhood into darkness. Dad moved downstairs, cornering Mom and Lisa in the living room, the knife raised. "The youngest is most compatible," the entity said, dragging Lisa toward the stairs. I grabbed a brass lamp and swung, the metal connecting with a sickening thud. He crumpled, the knife clattering across the hardwood. Mom checked his pulse, her hands trembling. "He's alive," she said, relief warring with horror. "John, what have you done?" "That's not Dad," I said, my voice shaking. "Not entirely. Something's using him to get through." We restrained Dad with extension cords, the white powder seeping from his pores, forming symbols on the floor. Mom called Dr. Elias Bennett, a former colleague who studied paranormal phenomena. He arrived, a wiry man in his 60s, his briefcase clinking with strange tools. He recognized the powder as liminal matter, a substance from dimensional boundaries, rare and dangerous. "This is Edward Chambers," he said, studying Dad, whose eyes alternated between normal and black. Trapped in a pocket dimension since 1943, trying to escape by overwriting Robert. Dad's eyes snapped open, fully black, the entity speaking. You cannot close what has been opened. The crossing must be completed. Bennett countered, appealing to Chambers' humanity. But the entity resisted, its laughter echoing unnaturally. Bennett proposed a ritual to seal the breach, using carved stones, dried herbs, and a map of dimensional boundaries. Not a geographical map, but a diagram of intersecting lines and symbols, representing the house's metaphysical structure. We placed stones at the house's corners. Mom at north and east, Lisa at south and west, me at the center of the living room, careful to avoid the powder around Dad. Bennett lit herb bundles, filling the house with pungent smoke, and chanted in a low, resonant tone, the stones glowing with a faint blue light. The final stone had to be placed in the replica house, opposite Lisa's wall. The breach is still there, despite the repair, Bennett said. Robert's been communing with it, keeping it open. I volunteered, ignoring Mom's protests. I opened it. I have to close it. Bennett handed me a black stone carved with intricate symbols, its surface warm. Place it opposite the breach and return immediately. You'll have 5 minutes before the passage seals. Dad or the entity laughed, the sound shaking the house. You don't know how to find the passage. I sealed it. Maybe, I said, pocketing the stone. But you've been whispering to it every night. You've kept it open. Bennett's chant intensified, the stone's glow brightening. I hugged Mom and Lisa, promising to return, and headed to Lisa's room. The repaired wall looked normal, but when I pressed my hand against it, it rippled like water, cold and viscous. I pushed through, the darkness crushing, then stumbled into the replica bedroom. The house had transformed, shadows cloaked everything. The temperature Arctic, white powder blanketing every surface like snow, forming symbols that pulsed with a sickly light. My breath came in thick clouds. My flashlight beamed dim against the darkness. A figure appeared in the doorway, tall, too tall, its limbs unnaturally long, wearing Dad's clothes but wrong, hanging loosely on a frame that bent at impossible angles. Its face was a distorted echo of Dad's, the features smudged, the eyes black voids. I knew you would return, it said, its voice vibrating the powder, the words coming from everywhere. I am becoming something else, as are you. Chambers, I said, clutching the stone. I'm here to close the door. The figure tilted its head, the motion insect-like. Why close it when you could stay? There's knowledge here, physics, mathematics, the true nature of reality. It spread its arms, powder cascading in waves. This is a perfect reflection, a place outside space-time. I succeeded, but the isolation. Its voice softened, almost human. 80 years at 1143, watching the world through windows. Do you know what that's like? For a moment, I felt pity, but then I remembered Lisa's terror, Dad's black eyes. You can't have my family. I moved to the wall opposite the breach, the stone warm in my hand. The figure lunged, its speed impossible, its face inches from mine. I don't need permission. It hissed, powder swirling into a cyclone, the air squeezing my lungs. Stay too long, and you become part of this place as I did. I pressed the stone into the wall, its blue glow spreading in veins, the surface rippling. The entity screamed, the sound shattering the air, powder forming symbols that burned my eyes. You're making a mistake, it roared, its body disintegrating, chunks of powder falling away. Once you've seen beyond the veil, you're forever changed. The house shuddered, walls rippling, the powder rising in a blinding storm. I ran for the passage, the wall resisting, solid under my touch. Panic surged, but I pushed harder, my hand sinking through, then my arm, my shoulder. The darkness crushed me. Then I tumbled onto Lisa's bedroom floor, gasping, the wall solidifying behind me, a faint blue glow fading. Mom, Lisa, and Bennett rushed in, Mom kneeling beside me. John, are you hurt? I shook my head, catching my breath. The powder on my clothes was inert, ordinary dust. Downstairs, Dad was himself, unconscious but breathing normally. The powder gone, his eyes normal when they fluttered open. "It's sealed," Bennett said, running his hand over the wall. "The breach is closed permanently." Dad woke the next morning, weak but himself, remembering only fragments. A cold presence pushing his mind aside. We told him an edited version, sparing the worst. Within weeks, we sold the house, moving to a new state, a home Bennett declared free of dimensional anomalies. Life normalized. Dad recovered. Mom stopped jumping at shadows. Lisa no longer checked behind doors. But 3 months later, at college, I found a glass jar on my desk, filled with white powder, a note in handwriting not quite mine. 1143 is always waiting. At night, I hear whispers, words in a language I almost understand, and know that some doors, once opened, cast shadows that never fade. What would you do if you found a hidden space in your home, whispering secrets too impossible to ignore? Would you explore, knowing the cost might be your reality, or seal it shut, forever wondering what lay beyond?